to the stream. We are robots, and I'm just kidding. Hi guys,
Yeah, we're not robots.
it's the Nerd Ledger. We're the nerds.
Yeah, we're the nerds, and we're on the ledger, I guess.
Yeah, we're ledging things or something.
Yeah, something like that.
What the fudge? Are we frozen?
Are we?
I don't know. Oh no, we're not frozen. Okay. Oh, we're frozen when I tab out.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
Not really. It shouldn't free. I mean, OBS like freezing doesn't make sense. Let me make sure we're not frozen on the actual interwebs.
Yeah, I won't be able to watch this time because I'm For those of you listening, if you can actually hear us, I'm cleaning my room right now. And it's something I haven't done in a long time, and you really shouldn't put it off. And you should clean your room at least on a quarterly basis, if not more. So, yeah, I'm getting rid of a lot of old junk, a lot of old books, a lot of old everything that I just don't need anymore. Very cathartic sometimes.
Yeah,
when I'm wiping down my computer.
When I minimized the Discord window, it froze us. So
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, what do you mean? Of course you do. You're like a gamer, you know. You know how these things work.
Yeah, I mod nudity mods in the Skyrim. I don't do streaming. Not there yet.
Bop. I'm tweeting that we're live.
There you go. So we are confirmed to be live on the internet, though.
We are, yeah.
All right, good.
We are live on the internet. Okay. Bop. Twitch.tv/the Nerd Ledger. Yeah, there you go. For all you guys listening to the audio version of this, you can follow us for live things on twitch.tv/the Nerd Ledger. There you go.
Yep.
Free
shout outs.
But yeah, we're here today because we have to talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And yeah, that came out last week. It's been a week, so if you haven't watched it and you don't want to be spoiled, you don't need to listen to this because we're going to spoil it because it's hard to talk about these things a lot of times without spoiling them.
Spoiling it, yep. Yeah. An unfortunate condition of the modern age is that like some of the things you learn are so mind-breakingly awesome that you gotta spoil them. So
yeah, so we will be spoiling it. So there's that disclaimer. Also, a disclaimer: if you don't like this movie or refuse to watch it because of the color, gender,
you hate black people,
whatever of the people, if you're upset that Namor's story has been changed and he's Mayan, and you don't like brown people like Namor now, who's brown, then you know you're not gonna like what we have to say because we're not gonna talk about any of that because it's completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the movie.
And in fact, I think you and I are maybe of the opinion that the movie was quite good.
Yeah. The movie was really good. I mean, it is definitely the best Marvel movie of the year.
Way better than Multiverse of Madness, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was better than Multiverse of Madness. It was, you know, if you're comparing the 3 Marvel films this year, it would go Black Panther, then Multiverse of Madness, and Thor: Love and Thunder for me. Obviously, like, you know,
that's right. Love and Thunder did come out this year.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to say where this movie would fall compared to the Batman, which also came out this year, and even as far as where it falls within Phase 4, because people like to talk shit about Phase 4, but there's some really good movies in Phase 4, and we'll get to all that at the end. We'll go over all that and discuss where it would fall, but yeah, pretty much this movie, you know, all the excess background stuff that went into the movie is important, but it shouldn't be used as a critique or you know, a way to, you know, celebrate the movie. It's just, it is what it is. I mean, the movie was kind of made under hard circumstances. The script for the movie was already finished before Chadwick Boseman's passing, and then he
Yep.
passed, and then they had to redo the entire script.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
the movie accomplished what it needed to in that respect of grieving and paying homage to Chadwick Boseman, and you feel like
Did you cry at all when they did all like their little like, oh man, we missed Chadwick, like at the very end? Like I like the beginning sequence, made me tear up a little bit when they gave him that little
yeah,
shout out.
if it
Yeah,
was
I
my
mean,
time of the month, yeah, I would have been weeping like a willow. But because I don't know, like for me, there's always times where like literally anything could make me cry, almost like anything like heartwarming. And
yeah,
then there's other times where it's like I'm not crying, but like I do feel, I feel.
you do feel you do. Cage does in fact occasionally have human.
Yeah, but I've experienced that more watching Andor for some reason. Like every
I
episode,
just
I feel
Yeah,
emotional.
I just started. That's something I really feel bad about. I just started episode one last night, and to be honest, like I was so like I've been drained. And there are to all of our wonderful viewers and my legion of adoring fangirls that are no doubt watching this right now. Um, it's just
Just move on to episode 2, okay? Don't even worry about
yeah,
episode 1.
like episode like yeah, episode one like yeah, last night I came home. I've been tired because I've been working like pretty much nonstop for 6 weeks in a row now, so I'm just a little bit running on E. Last night, like I got super stoned. I sat in my bed with the intention of watching Andor on my big TV on that I have like across from my bed, and then I made it halfway through episode one and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
Feel kind of bad for that, but I can tell it's good that there's quality. Like everyone keeps talking about how good it is. I just need to make the time to watch it, which is what I'm doing tonight. Like I'm gonna watch episode two. Like I barely finished episode one, but I still kind of got most of the way through it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But back to Black Panther.
yep,
I mean, I feel like everything worked out, and the movie really, the characters in the movie, Shuri probably especially, are kind of proxies for us as viewers, right? Like we all, I can't say all, but it seemed like the general consensus was that Chadwick Boseman was phenomenal at what he did.
yeah.
He
He
brought
was
so much.
and he was a great actor. Like and he was just a good dude. Like I think that was the general consensus. Like that he was a working professional actor that like gave us a lot of his time, and the
Yeah.
fact that he was doing Black the first. For those of you that are wonderful viewers that don't know, he was doing the first Black Panther while no, it was Infinity War
Infinity
while he
War,
was
yeah.
going through chemotherapy. And if you've never been proximate to somebody who's been going through chemotherapy, congratulations, you're very lucky like me. But also as someone who's read a lot of books and just does a lot of reading in general, specifically on the subject of cancer, like it's chemotherapy is intense. Your blood is being cleansed, like you're intentionally poisoning yourself with like a super poison that your body can barely fight off on its own, but the cancer just can't sustain, and it's not fun to go through, to deal with, etc. Like so,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's crazy.
it is very
But
crazy, and more props to him. And again, like you could just tell that from all the content leading up to that movie was just specifically about how they were making that movie to honor Chadwick, and I appreciate that sentiment.
yeah.
That was good.
And Chadwick Boseman just brought so much grace to the role of T'Challa,
Yep,
and
he was the king.
yeah. So it was. I mean, I just enjoyed the movie. Like it was really. It wasn't a surprise that Shuri would, eventually become the Black Panther. And so one of the criticisms I've heard or seen is Black Panther was barely in the movie, and I'm like, yeah, did you watch the movie? That's literally kind of the point of the movie. Like,
Point, yeah, that they don't have a protector anymore.
yeah,
Yeah,
the absence of the Black Panther has made Wakanda vulnerable, and they're kind of okay with that because they're mourning. Well, some people in Wakanda are okay with it. Others are like, yo, we need the Black Panther. Come on, let's find a way to get the flower back, Shuri. Come on, fix your shit. Like,
yep.
So we knew kind of all this stuff was going to happen, but the journey to get there is important. And it's also important to understand Shuri's ultimate motivation for becoming the Black Panther wasn't altruistic. It wasn't to become
So let's just do real quick, but let's try and go through it quick, like just a scene by scene breakdown of the movie. Do you think that'd probably be a more effective way of like, summarizing our thoughts?
Yeah, we can
Um,
try if we can
because
remember
it
all
was
the
a long movie.
scenes, but
Yeah, if we can remember everything, that'll
it
definitely be a
was a
question. But
long movie. It
it
was.
was a very long movie.
Um,
So the movie opens up. We get the typical Marvel screen, and then what we get that made me tear up, probably made you tear up too, is like they have like this cutaway. How normally like it would be all the heroes and stuff, but this time
yeah,
it was just all Chadwick Boseman, like
and there
these
was no
great
music.
scenes. There was no music, there was no nothing. It was just you seeing Chadwick, and
Yeah,
that's why I knew like, oh man, like
there
that.
were.
Obviously, there was obviously a wound here. I think when Chadwick passed, like a deep wound that it's nice for us to sit and talk about like greedy Hollywood and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're all like human beings that know each other and stuff. So, um, I think that the damage like of his passing was like very substantial
Yeah,
to a lot of people that were working on that project.
there were a few kind of like what felt like moments of silence in this movie for Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, yep.
So, yep. So we get that opening, and then we get this opening. Well, even before they do the Marvel thing, like the movie kind of immediately opens on us hearing that T'Challa is in critical condition from an unknown illness, and we see Shuri like frantically trying to create, recreate the flower to try to save him. And as this is kind of going, he ends up dying,
Yeah,
and
passing.
yeah, and then we get the Marvel logo with all the Chadwick Boseman scenes, and then we open on some Wakandan customs of
Funeral. Yeah.
grieving and the funerals and how all that worked, and from there, where do we go? Do we go to
They go to
the
the
boat?
French. Yeah, we go to the boat, but it's also the UN
Oh yeah,
meeting
yeah,
at the
the
same.
UN thing. Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah, the UN thing. The UN thing happens first, right?
That was
Like,
fucking sick
yeah.
though.
So what happens is that like the Wakandans are doing like they've been ever since T'Challa took over. They've been doing a lot of charity work like around the world because they're one of the most advanced societies in the world actually.
Hmm.
With their all their vibranium stuff. So they're doing that. They're doing that. Eventually, like other countries would be like, hey, we want some of that sweet vibranium too. It's really OP. Please give it to us. And then they're always like, no, because I think like it said it's specified that like their standard is that they don't give out vibranium, they don't trade in it or do anything with it whatsoever. Like they just don't do that.
Yeah,
So
because if because of what other countries would do with it, right? They'd make weapons
yeah,
like and not to protect themselves to hold
conquer
over.
their enemies.
Yeah, it's like nuclear weapons.
Yeah, like the next stage of like human warfare. Um,
Yeah.
and then they came, and then while she's doing this meeting, it cuts to this scene of these mercenaries breaking into a Wakandan like what was it, a Wakandan like civil support center or something like that, like in Iran or
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
like a research
Yeah,
center or something. Yeah, and
yeah. And then it turns out that those are all the Queen's Guard, like badass chicks. And they ambush the mercenaries. It turns out they were all French Foreign Legionnaire mercenaries. And yeah, and they get dumped into the middle of the UN meeting, and then they leave after basically calling everyone stupid.
yeah, Angela Bassett hard carries that scene.
But yeah, she
She's great.
does. She's just yelling. She's a very angry mom the entire thing, and
She's just
that's just
powerful too. Just like
very part. Yeah, she
yeah,
acts like a queen.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a quick bite of my In-N-Out burger.
Oh, yep. You cut out a little bit, but you can take your bite. Um, yeah, and then after that, we kind of, we get this sequence where we find out that they're U.S. military kind of people that are trying to find other sources of vibranium outside of Wakanda, and so they seem to have found one, and it's close to, I guess, to Talokan, which is the home, not the home world, but it's like the underwater civilization that in comics would be Atlantis, but here it's Talokan, or Namor and the Atlanteans, or what are they called in this? They're not
Can you hear me?
Atlanteans. Yeah,
Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
They're just called like the Telecons or something like that, or
Y-
his people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but we don't know any of this yet. Like they're just so eventually what happens is they go to this research facility, like, oh wow, we find some vibranium outside of Wakanda. Damn, we like found this super genius who was able to build a machine that found vibranium. And then they're sending out someone to spit to check it out, and then some weird shit starts happening where these people start popping out of the water, and then they start singing, and this causes like a really cool scene. I guess that these Telecon people have some special like sonic attack where they can hypnotize people to jump into the water, where they can just murder them.
yeah,
So it was really cool. Then
yeah.
after that, the Telecons like climb up and they start ambushing, and they have like super strength and they're super OP and they're beating up all these guys. And then they're like, one chick's escaping on a helicopter and she's shooting them, and they fly off in the helicopter, and then they're intercepted by some OP dude who later is like Akuta who is their leader, and I guess is a mutant with a
Kukulkan.
specific Kukulkan. Yeah, he's a mutant with a specific backstory. I know in comics, when I was reading a lot on the internet, it's just like a shit show right now. It really is. Like just think the racism bleeds out eventually.
Yeah. Look,
there's
here's the
nothing
thing,
wrong with
right? People
yeah.
on the internet can say whatever they want. People who read comics can say whatever they want. Namor as a character is an interesting enough character, but Namor also is a very problematic character in many, many ways, including the fact that he's like sexually assaulted people. He doesn't understand boundaries. Like he gets a I think he just likes blonde women because if I'm not mistaken, he's both obsessed with Sue Storm and Emma Frost.
Mm,
Like he's crazed. Like he's woman crazed in a lot of comics.
mm,
And yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, Namor deserves his place in comic book history. He is Marvel's first mutant, and people are saying, but he's not the first mutant. Apocalypse was the first mutant. Okay, maybe in world, but in terms of when he was created, he's the first mutant in Marvel Comics, and that's important. And even I had a conversation with someone I know, and he was like,
mm.
how can Namor be a mutant if his mom wasn't a mutant? And I was like,
That's not how mutants work. They just kind of mutate, right?
I was like, well, like you get your genetics from your parents, but mutations aren't genetic. Well, I mean they can be, but like that's he mutated in the womb. Like that's why he's a mutant. None of the other of his people can breathe on land without they can't breathe
Those
oxygen
masks.
anymore.
Yeah.
So he
And just to
can.
point out too, yeah, in this, like the CGI is really good in this show, aside from the last
The
sequence, where it
CGI,
all falls,
yeah,
is where it all falls apart in the end because of a certain thing we'll get to at some point.
the
Um,
CGI here is significantly better than
in the first one for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
So, so he gets eventually, like they think the Americans think it's the Wakandans. They send Agent Roar. No, they don't. I'm gonna take another bite of my burger. I'll let you continue on.
well, I think there are a couple different parts of this sequence that are happening, right? Like, I think after this we go back to Wakanda where Shuri is like Shuri's mom, and she's like, hey, you gotta finish the grieving process. You gotta burn the clothes from the funeral and things like that. And talking about the ancestral thing, and Shuri's just like falling like, no, I don't believe in this ancestral bullshit. I don't believe in this spiritual bullshit. Like, I believe in science, and only science could have saved my brother. And like, this is where she's at. And while they're having that conversation, Namor pops up. And he's like, hey, I'm in Wakanda, bitches. I'm here. And they're like, oh shit, what the fuck? And he's like, yo, the American government found some of your vibranium shit near where we are, and that's exposed us. And as a result, we need your help to fix this shit. And if you don't want to help us,
Yep.
I'm gonna fuck you. Like I'm gonna fuck Wakanda in the ass, pretty much.
Yeah, where you say like that I have more soldiers than there are blades of grass in Wakanda or something like that.
Yeah, some crazy shit. We didn't see all his soldiers, but hey, man, he got the fish and the whales and shit fighting for him. Who knows, right? But yeah,
Yeah, we can talk about more of that after we've done the recap because there are some. This movie isn't perfect for sure.
no,
This
no,
movie isn't
but
perfect.
yeah,
But yeah, we can.
Namor's like,
Go
yo,
on.
an American scientist made the machine that found the vibranium, and you need to bring me the scientists so I can kill them because they've exposed me. And then then we get to America, and then Everett Ross. And here's the whole thing with Ross and Madam Hydra, and this whole storyline. Madam Hydra is Julia Louis Dreyfus or whatever. I feel like they could have easily made this movie a little shorter and a little better paced by cutting all that shit. Like, I don't think we needed that at all. It's just for people to say, hey, these are our Thunderbolts things, right? Hey, she's gonna be making the Thunderbolts. We saw her recruit John Walker in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Falcon and Winter Soldier, the show, and we saw her recruiting Yelena at the end of Black Widow. And hey, she's forming the Thunderbolts. This is important, cool. She didn't need to be in this movie. Like, she's not recruiting anyone. There's not a real importance to it. It's just kind of show like she's on top of things. Like, we didn't need most of that. And I get it's kind of supposed to be comic relief. But there's a lot of good improv in this movie that's also comic relief. Like when M'Baku calls Okoye a bald-headed demon or some shit.
Yeah, like the comedy in this movie is leagues better than any other Marvel movie, I think. Personally, like, I think the comedy is just. And again, this is something we can get into after, but.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have the hiccups. The comedy in this movie, it felt very well timed. None of it felt disrespectful. There were some points where it was like, oh, they shouldn't be joking right now. But for the most part, it actually broke away from the quip.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes it broke away. It really broke away from the action drama quip formula, where it was just kind of all over the place, which I appreciate.
Yeah, what we don't need is humor that takes away from the intense moments, that takes away from the big emotional moments. That is hurtful, right, to the story, which other movies have been perpetrators of. But this movie doesn't do it so much there. This movie just uses these moments of brevity to break up between the hard-hitting things, right? Like when Shuri, is being angry and whatever, they're not breaking that up with jokes, right? Like, there's just fun sequences, which, these following sequences are pretty fun, where we meet Riri Williams, who is apparently the scientist. She's a young girl who is incredibly smart, and she's the one who made the technology and the robot, pretty much, to discover vibranium, but she did it on a small scale for a school project, which then somehow they gave to the government, and then,
Yep. She was just like, I'm super smart. I'm hella badass.
Yeah.
I can,
and
she's a baller. And
that whole sequence of finding her and learning about her isn't intense. It's not heavy. It's not supposed to be. So it's fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jokes in there. Between Shuri and Okoye, and between Shuri and Riri, and the three of them together.
There was a joke about her ashy ass forehead, which was, again, like, I didn't believe they would go that black, but they did, and it was really. It was just. Yeah. It was really fun. And I'm glad they kept the humor, again, because Black Panther, as stated in their own intention of the showrunners, is it's supposed to appeal also to African Americans and such. So
and again,
having jokes like that is important.
For the people who say, "Oh, they can say that, but I can't. If I say that, I'm racist." Yes, that's how it works. Thank you for understanding.
That's why I can go and call a bunch of Italian people a bunch of guineas and they won't care. That's why I can call my good friend Kaje here a Nazi who believes in Scandinavian supremacy. Probably, I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
that's a little too far. But yeah, this whole sequence is great. And it ends up with us finding out Riri has made her own Iron Man suit, pretty much.
And you don't see the full Iron Man suit, but you do see her flying around in kind of a janky one, and it's and she goes on to eventually become who we now know is going to be Ironheart, right?
Yeah. Who's getting her own TV series. I thought Riri was great. I thought the actress did a great job, and really endeared me to the character, and I think will endear other people who were like, why are they making a female black person a new Iron Man? Those people who were mad when she was made in comics, hopefully will be assuaded a little bit, because come on.
She was just really down to earth human being. She was like, what the fuck? Who the fuck? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I got kidnapped by a bunch of motherfuckers under the ocean. She does curse a lot, by the way. And
But
there's a lot of
she
cursing.
doesn't say fuck because it's
Yeah,
PG-13, but yeah.
PG-13. Yeah.
Yeah, so this sequence pretty much ends with Shuri and Riri getting kidnapped by, well, not kidnapped. They were, you know, they were gonna kill Riri, and Okoye is like being badass and fighting him off, and then eventually,
She gets overwhelmed
she gets
because
overwhelmed. Yeah,
there's a bunch of them, and there's only one of her.
and Shuri
So,
demands to be taken to Talokan.
yep.
And so they take her and they take Riri, and the whole sequence with Shuri and Talokan and talking to Namor. This is a very endearing thing, like a very endearing scene, and it Talokan looks amazing. He talks about
It
how he
does.
made a sun for his people underwater. He created
Yep.
this amazing civilization. He
And
talks
it
about his
was
backstory.
it all is at the backdrop of Spanish colonialism in Mesoamerica. Anyone who denies the history at this point, we know what the Catholic priests did because they wrote everything they did down, and they thought they were in the right. I don't like blaming the people who came to this. Like, I don't like blaming the smallpox thing and the disease. Like, they didn't know because they didn't have an understanding of microbiology or anatomy or any of that kind of stuff back in the day. There were a lot of native tribes that had very friendly interactions with early settlers, and then they all just died because they got smallpox because the new settlers would come and like take a piss in the river that they're downstream of 20 miles away and kill them all. It's just it happened that fast. Like, it would spread through a whole village, kill them all. It was horrible. It was bad. But I don't know if we can blame this like people who came to this land for that. But what we can blame them for is what the Catholic Church did all around Mesoamerica for almost 140 years. Again, like, the biggest crime to me personally will always be the book burnings that took place. Hundreds of thousands of Aztec codices and texts and everything like that were just burned by Catholic priests. Hundreds of thousands of years of history, things we could have probably understood about ourselves a little bit better, maybe a little bit of ancient wisdom, all gone. So, and then they used the native people there to, again, as slave labor and agricultural production of sugar cane, mining, all those kind of things for hundreds of years. So anyone who denies that is just ignorant of history. The Catholic. So, and really need to put that out there.
Yeah, and I really like a lot of that stuff. I mean, it really does help to paint Namor more as the anti-hero, not so much as a villain.
That's one thing. Maybe we can talk about this like after we're done going over the whole of the movie. But he feels more like an anti-hero than a villain this whole movie.
People keep talking about him like, I mean, in comics,
people keep talking. They talk about him like he's a villain, like why Namor is a perfect villain for Wakanda or stuff like that. I see those articles and I always want to respond like, I don't really think he was a villain at all.
Namor is the United States during World War One.
Yeah,
I mean, he's an isolationist. He believes in protecting his people and not meddling in the problems of other people and all. He's the United States during World War One, and then things happen where he gets exposed and he's like, oh shit, we got to do something. And, that's the thing. Namor cares about his people a lot. And we can talk about comics versus movies, at great length, but it doesn't mean anything because it has nothing to do with the movie itself, right? Like, the movie is going to do its own thing as it should, and it did. But parts of Namor's character are still present there, including just that, right? Like, he cares about his people, and that's his number one priority.
And I don't know anything about Namor. Like, I've never read it. Like, again, this is the kind of dichotomy you and I have. Like, I just don't really read comics. I don't like reading comics that much because I like seeing things in my own brain. So it's like, I don't know anything about him at all. Period. Like, hands down.
Which is, you shouldn't have to enjoy the movie, right? And
I liked his character, because I study history, so I'm aware of what happened in Mesoamerica for a very long period of time. So I completely empathize, with the character and everything like that. And I just, he was a good character. I really liked him a lot.
Yeah, I did too. I have one problem with this character, and we'll get to that kind of towards the end, I guess, when we're talking about the things we maybe didn't like as much. But yeah, so we get this great sequence. Meanwhile, Okoye is being stripped from her rank and title in the Dora Milaje because she failed to protect Shuri, and
and the Queen's really really upset. Like, she's like screaming and yelling at everybody basically in the courtroom, in the throne room now. And then while that's going on, they rescue.
Yeah,
Sure, they get T'Challa's love interest from the
yeah.
last movie.
So she
That's her.
recruits Nakia,
Like,
who's
yeah,
been
yep,
living in Haiti for a while. The 5 years that between Thanos' snap and when everybody came back, and I think a couple
yep,
extra years on top of that. It's been like 7 years, I think they said.
yeah.
Uh,
A very long amount of time for sure.
yeah, that she's been in Haiti, and then there's also questions, later, around why she wasn't at T'Challa's funeral and different things like that. But we'll get to that whenever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So Nakia, she was a super spy for Wakanda, and she ends up finding where Shuri is and rescuing her, but not before killing a member of Namor's tribe.
yep.
And essentially, they're like, this means war.
And they go to war. With whole. Well, again, with this is the thing where the movie falls apart sometimes.
They didn't really go to
So
war. I mean, Namor just kind of
they go
fucked
back. So
Wakanda in
what
the ass like he said he was
what
going
happens
to.
is they go back to Wakanda, like Shuri and everyone. They go back to Wakanda. They talk for a long time about what they're going to do. Like, oh, we should prepare for an attack. They're right on the river and everything like that. And then, like, they come with like they're like 13, 14 soldiers, something like that. They start throwing they start throughout the movie. They've had these cool little bombs that they throw, and they're like when they explode, they're a giant rush of water, like huge rush of water goes
Yeah.
everywhere. And they were just using these ad hominem in Wakanda like everywhere, like they were bombing like the huts and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so they were attacking Wakanda with like again, it looked like it was only like 15 soldiers. It wasn't that bad of an assault, like not like he originally said. What happens is that he gets there's a lot of fighting. I forget what's the name of that big dude who's like the gorilla who lives in Gorilla City or whatever fucking it is.
M'Baku.
What's like M'Baku. He does get some badass fight sequences, but eventually Namor just like punches him in the chest with his super mutant strength. And M'Baku goes flying, and he's like, "Oh shit, what the fuck just happened?" And then he's like out for the count. And then more and more terror spreads and stuff like that. And eventually, Namor flies up to the throne. He's like, "Fuck you, Queen! Give me that little bitch!" And she's like, "No, fuck you!" And then he hits the glass with his vibranium spear. It doesn't break. And then he gets like a huge bag of like these the water bomb things,
Yeah.
right? Like a giant bag, and he throws them at the throne room. The throne room floods. She gets dragged down below to like this section, hollow section beneath the throne room that's now full of water. She wakes, like she was knocked unconscious, and then she starts swimming back to the surface with the chick who could scan the found the vibranium.
Yeah, she died saving Riri, right? And so
Yep. And the queen dies. She makes it to the surface. She gets Riri to the top, and like they try to resuscitate the queen. They don't resuscitate her, but they resuscitate Riri. And then it's just Shuri by herself now, essentially, and they're picking up the pieces after being attacked. And then they go back to the lab. Shuri's being all edgy and upset. They give her like I forget like she uses that's right. She uses the fiber from like the vibranium fiber from from her bracelet to make the herb again,
mhm.
so she can become the Black Panther. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between here and there, but it's usually just like they empty the Wakandan city and stuff like that, and yeah, and so there's a good exchange between her and M'Baku, and she basically calls him a stupid bitch, and that he needed to follow her no matter what. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then after that, I can't remember what happens after that.
Um,
They get the herb. She gets the herb. They grind it up. They put her on like a little floating platform. She drinks the herb. She starts tripping balls. The first person she sees is Killmonger
well,
in
the
the
only
chair.
person, right?
No,
So
the only person she sees in the spirit world is
in the
Killmonger.
ancestral plane.
Because that's the Black Panther she most strongly empathizes with. I think is like what they're trying to put out.
Right, because the reason
Is
she sees him
consumed
is,
by vengeance.
and here's the thing, like, okay, I'll get to this later. It ties in with my
Okay.
criticism of Namor, but yeah, like she didn't become the Black Panther to protect Wakanda. She became the Black Panther to get revenge and
Yeah.
murder Namor essentially for killing her mom.
Yep.
And so it's then we go to this whole, okay, we got a plan, we're gonna go attack, and we kind of get to the climax of the movie.
So what happened? Yeah, they build up some new tech and stuff like that they can fight what are they called again? What's the name of that city? The
Holocon.
Kalakonians. The Kalakonians with. And they get together and they're like, okay, we got a team, we got a plan, let's go do it. And like, yeah, fuck them. And then they sail. They go out there. I forgot how they initially go out there. How is it?
Well, it's like a big
Yeah, but
boat.
isn't there something you use to distract them before the boat reveals itself? Isn't there something like that?
Um.
Don't they have like? Isn't there like a distraction?
Oh
And then
yeah,
the
there's a
boat, like the boat.
distraction.
Yeah, the boat was like, the boat was invisible, and I
Yeah,
forgot what it was.
I don't remember, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They had a they had a plan to draw him out first, and then
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
um.
So
So
they draw them out, and then this
oh,
giant ship.
they
Oh, go
used the
ahead.
shell. Um. Wait, was that what it was? Didn't they use the shell to call Namor
I
that
thought
he
it said
left them? Or was that earlier in the
yeah,
movie? No, that was earlier. That the Queen used the shell to meet with him on the beach, so he wouldn't be there when Nakia went to save Shuri.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So I don't know. They do something to convince like to make a war party of these people. Like sail out to come fight them in open battle. And then it turns out that they're not alone, and there's a giant ship that the Wakandans have that's like invisible and has invisibility tech and stuff like that. So they sail it out there to fight them, and the big battle starts. The battle is pretty straightforward as Marvel battles go. They're all fighting each other. The superpowers, like they they reveal the Ironheart suit, which I actually thought looked very silly. I think it looked anime and it looked weird and it looked kind of just out of place in a Marvel movie and in a Marvel show. But maybe they'll change it. Maybe they won't. I don't know. With that being said, though, I thought it was a really weird looking suit. What did you think?
I thought the suit looked fine.
Mm,
Um, but also, yeah, I mean, it looked very kind of like Power Rangey.
yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
thinking.
but
That it
it
looked
wasn't
just like
bad necessarily. I didn't think it was bad.
mm,
Um, but overall, like right, like this sequence kind of I guess we can start getting to some of the negatives because
yeah,
like the climax and everything kind of like it what's the word?
it's very
It kind of
anticlimactic.
it's kind of representative of the pacing issues throughout the movie
Yeah,
because pacing was a big problem, and it's going to be like it's the movie's going to feel clunky because of a lot of different factors. But parts of it did feel clunky, and the pacing was off, and part of it was also breaking up so many of these scenes with like Ross and Madam Hydra and stuff, where she's like, "Ha, I knew the whole time you were helping the Wakandans. I've been spying on you. I'm not a dummy. Ha ha ha." Like, all right,
yeah,
cool. He's arrested. Got it. Like,
and then he's rescued.
yeah,
So just to finish off the movie, though, what happens is they get into a really big fight. They like capture Namor in a ship that has like little microwaves and it starts to dry him out. And he's like losing his powers because they figure out his powers like when he's wet, he's just super OP because he's breathing through his skin and also through with the water on his skin. So
yeah.
he turns into OP when he's super wet. Um, so they're like, okay, we gotta fix that, and then they like, so then they get into a cool melee fight on the beach. Him and Shuri, they get the new reveal of the Black Panther suit. It looks really cool looking with the spots and everything like that, a little bit cheetah like.
Mm-hmm.
They get into a cool fight. Shuri eventually she comes to the conclusion vengeance has consumed you, it's consuming them, and I'm done letting it consume me. I got another amazing line delivered by Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
So
And
and
we
then she
also
sees her mom.
yeah, she hears
She
her
sees her
mom
mom.
pretty much say,
Yeah, and then
show them who we are, right?
yeah, and then they just she's like, okay, I'm done fighting. And Namor's like, what? He's like, I'm done fighting. We don't need to fight anymore. We're done. And then Namor's like, okay, everybody, stop killing those guys.
Yeah,
Get back on the boat and let's go back to Calican.
yeah, Namor yields, which when it happened, I was like, it doesn't really seem like the kind of thing he would do.
Mm,
And then the follow up scene where he's talking to Namora and he's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what I said. Like, what matters is, now Wakanda is an ally,
yeah,
And
they're
like,
very powerful, and the Black Panther is the most powerful person in Wakanda. What do you
right.
say? Like, Wakanda is the most powerful nation on Earth, and the Black Panther is the most powerful person in Wakanda. So
Yeah.
it's worth being friends with them.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that means he has good intentions still, if he has bad intentions. He was painting a picture, old school Aztec style, of like him and the Black Panther fighting. So it was cool.
Yeah. So, I guess before we get to like the post credit scene and we'll wrap up the movie. So pretty much then, M'Baku is like, I challenge for Black Panther or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Shuri wasn't there, because Shuri was she's off in Haiti with Nakia.
Mm-hmm.
But it leaves you a lot of questions of, is she gonna be queen? Probably. Is she gonna be the Black Panther still? Maybe. And I remember, last week we podcasted and you said, what are some of your predictions for the movie? And one of them I said was that Shuri as Black Panther would be temporary.
Yeah.
And we don't have that confirmed, but I do believe that's the case. Especially with the post-credit scene, which I guess we can talk about as well. It's not really a post-credit scene; it's a mid-credit scene where pretty much we get introduced to T'Challa's son.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's why Nakia was in Haiti the whole time. This was arranged beforehand. She would raise the son away from Wakanda, and eventually he'll be king, I'm
normal.
sure.
Yep.
And potentially the Black Panther. And from a comic book perspective, there is a universe where Black Panther has a child with Storm. But
Storm?
Yeah. Well, he's married to Storm in comics.
Oh, wow.
Aurora Monroe. They went to college in Wakanda together, I believe, and eventually they got married, and then during Civil War there were some issues, and they separated, and then eventually they got back together.
Some issues.
And then this is all the main 616 storyline of Marvel Comics, like the main storyline. But there's other universes, and in one of those other universes, they have a child. Different name, different everything. It's probably unrelated completely, but if you guys are interested in that, you can check it out, on your own time, because it's not really relevant at all, in my opinion. But okay, first problem.
Mm-hmm.
Namor's motivation is
all over the place
to destroy the world, the surface world, but not Wakanda.
Yeah.
He wants to work with Wakanda to destroy the surface world.
Yeah.
And then I'm reminded of Black Panther 1, where Killmonger's motive was to kill all the other people in the world too, right? Or to free all the black people, right?
Yep.
By killing all the white people. Which
Yep.
is kind of the same thing, if you ask me. I feel like the motivation was pretty much the same as Killmonger's, right? That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, I just think this whole notion that he was a villain. He wasn't really a villain, and that's why I think that they had difficulties. Like, I could tell that in the writing, and I think that because of that, they had just trouble writing him as a character who did things, because they needed a villain to move the plot along who did evil shit that nobody liked.
Well, he and Shuri had the same arc almost, right? Like, they just came to different conclusions, and again. There is a significant difference, right? Like, even though on the surface Namor and Killmonger had similar motivations, right? They point in different directions, which is important, right? Like, Killmonger wanted to take over Wakanda and use it to help with his plan, and then Namor wanted to partner with Wakanda, like a little bit different, and they still point in different directions. So it's kind of different, but Shuri also was angry about all these things in life and everything that had happened, and she was also motivated by revenge.
Yeah.
Which is, similar to Namor. Namor is motivated by revenge. She wants to get, now that now that his place is exposed, right? He wants to make sure that they're safe forever, and the only way he can think of doing that is to kill people, but also he wants revenge because settlers, and because it's kind of muddied a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem I was having. Is okay, are you mad at the surface world because you don't want them to find vibranium, or are you mad at the surface world because of what they did to your mom? It didn't establish clearly why he was so biased when he was addressing the surface world and stuff like that.
Yeah, And also, I saw this going around on social media, and I need people to understand how dumb they look when they repeat this. People said that Shuri pointing the spear at Namor and telling him to yield was a Martha moment. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, a Martha moment is the moment from BVS where Batman was about to kill Superman until he said, "Save Martha," and then Batman says, "Why did you say that name?" And let me tell you, these are 100% completely different things. 100%. Shuri is not Batman. Superman is not Namor. The whole story is different, and it's not a name that stopped her from killing him. It's not. And I get it. The thing people say is, in BVS, well, Batman in that moment understood that Superman also had a mom, which makes him more human, and that's why he didn't kill him. Yeah, but the reason he wanted to kill him is because Superman, in his mind, had a blatant disregard for other people's lives when he destroyed Metropolis, pretty much, and that's why you hate Superman. That doesn't change just because he has a mom. Also, all the other people in the movie you murdered had moms, and they were human. Yeah. Like, it doesn't, like, it's really poorly done in BVS, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In this movie, there was none of that. They established a relationship between Shuri and Namor that was positive. They established all of this stuff. And yes, Namor killed her mom, but she, in the meantime, was confronted with Killmonger. She was confronted with her own feelings. She had realizations, and she understood in the end that it's not the Wakandan way. It's not what her brother would have wanted. It's not what her mom would have wanted. And even though she rejects what they would have wanted outright, when there's a line or something when someone says, "This isn't what your mother would have wanted for you," she says, "Well, what my mom wanted died with her," right? Like, she's not here, so her dreams and wishes don't really matter, right? She says that.
That was and M'Baku who said that to her, actually.
Yeah,
M'Baku. I really like
that
M'Baku.
Was a great scene.
I really like M'Baku a lot.
M'Baku was fantastic in this movie.
He is, and he's barely in it. That's the weird thing. But when he is in it, like, he just commands everything. I won't be surprised if we eventually see a Disney Plus series with it featuring him.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising at all. But I think we'll definitely see him in future Black Panther movies and other things.
Yep.
He's here to stay, but it's just like, it's just so weird to me that, like, I understand the parallels between BVS and this movie, but I mean, there's even more parallels between Wakanda Forever and Justice League, right? Like, Justice League, the whole point is Superman's gone, and now people see there's weakness, and that's why, other people are coming to Earth to try to do all these things. And it's the same thing here. Black Panther's gone, people see weakness. So you can draw all these parallels, but it's execution, right? The story and the plot of Wakanda Forever isn't the best. It's not amazing. It's not like the greatest thing ever. It's not overly complex, but the acting, the writing, the characters, or the moments, like this movie
acting, that's
delivers.
The thing that really the acting goes above and beyond, I think, the movies anyone. And this is why it really makes me mad too, is I'm a really big fan of the Angry Joe show. And Joe was of my opinion too. We shared the same opinion that, like, the movie was actually quite good and entertaining and, like, very fun. But then I started reading the comments from his audience, dude, and it was just like, nobody gives a fuck about any of these characters. None of them fucking matter. They're all fucking useless pieces of shit. Just a bunch of woke, dumb bullshit nonsense.
This is
I was just like, oh my god.
It's crazy because I have conversations with a friend sometimes, and the thing is, like, he always says the most stupid shit. And sometimes he's trolling and other times he's not. But, like, literally anytime Marvel does anything, they announce a movie, he'll say, "Why are they doing that? Why not?" Well, because, like, nobody cares about that. And I'll say, well, there are people who care about it, but, I agree, like, they're not the most popular character. And then he'll say, well, did they sell as many comics as the X-Men? Like, no, they didn't. But what does that matter? Yeah. Well, they should just do Wolverine then, because Wolverine sells. Yeah,
well, they are doing Wolverine.
These things sell too. Like, they have their own plan, and if you're not, the funny thing is, like, I'm sure the people in the comments of that show are the same. They'll still go watch every movie, and they'll still talk about it. So, unless they're gonna, like, boycott or some shit, it doesn't matter. Like, their opinion means nothing because they're still putting their money there. And
Yeah, exactly. That's what I try and tell people too, and they always get upset.
right. And so that kind of brings us to the point of maybe discussing Phase 4 overall, right? Phase 4 had a lot of criticism
Mm,
because people thought it lacked direction. People questioned where it was going, what was happening. And the thing is, Phase 4 had some of the worst performing movies out of all of Marvel. Part of that's
mm.
because three of them came out during the pandemic, pretty much.
Yeah.
And those were Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and
Which
Eternals.
when Shang-Chi was the only one, like I saw Eternals in theaters. I didn't see Black Widows in theaters, and even when I saw it on Disney Plus, it was kind of just I don't know. That movie exists, and that's about all it does.
Right.
You know, it's unfortunate because Scarlett Johansson is a good actress when she wants to be. But I don't know. That movie just couldn't get it. And again, I really liked that gentleman who is that gentleman? He's the
David
dad in
Harbour.
Stranger David Harbour. I love him a lot. He's playing a Santa movie where he's a Santa murderer, and I definitely 120% going to go see that movie in theaters.
Right. So let's look at what Phase 4 was and what it did, because some people maybe are still confused about it, right? We did
Mhm.
discuss overall, like how we talked a while ago, and we're not gonna go over all this again, but I'll just briefly say, like, we talked about how they're building Thunderbolts, how they're building like Young Avengers, how they were establishing like the quantum realm stuff and building whatever. We talked about all that stuff, or not the quantum realm, but the through Loki, right, with the timeline and all that stuff, right? We talked about all that.
Yep. Yep.
But if we want to talk about what Phase 4 was for and what it accomplished or what it should have accomplished, right? We can look movie by movie. Black Widow. What is the movie about? It's about moving on. It's
Yep.
about growth. It's about grief. What is Shang-Chi about? Shang-Chi is
But
something new, right? Something new. But there's a lot of themes in there. Whatever. Shang-Chi's an interesting one because we can all agree it's one of the best in the phase.
yep.
Uh,
So far.
and yeah, so after Shang-Chi, we had Eternals, right? Eternals is another
Mhm.
movie where we're dealing essentially with the fallout of Thanos and the snap and
Yep.
everything, and dealing with that kind of stuff. Then we have what is the best movie of Phase 4, Spider-Man No Way Home. And what is this movie about? It's about grief. It's about moving on, right? Same kind of themes. Then we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's about moving on from the snap. It's
Yep.
about, where, Steven's love life as well as, whatever. And then again, the timeline stuff. And it's about grief, Wanda's grief. Then
Yep.
we have Thor Love and Thunder, which again, moving on from the snap. Jane has cancer, grief.
Yep.
Okay. Then we have this movie, Black Panther. It's about moving on. It's about grief,
Agree.
right? This is the 7 stages of grief, guys. Phase 4 is about going through it, acknowledging what happened, acknowledging it was real, dealing with those problems, and moving forward. That's what Phase
Yep.
4 was, right? And that's how we're gonna Black Panther was the last movie of Phase 4. Phase 5 is gonna kick off with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is gonna establish our villain for the next couple years in Kang the Conqueror. And remember the same friend I said, why don't they do X-Men? And then he says the same thing about Kang. Why are they doing Kang? Everyone knows Galactus is better. Shut up.
Well, I would agree. Galactus is pretty cool,
Yeah, but
but
you have
at
to
the same time,
establish things, right?
just
Like,
Galactus. Yeah.
what?
This is why does Kang eventually lead into Galactus? I don't know anything about that. So.
I mean, not really, but again, like
Oh.
they didn't just release Iron Man 1 and have Thanos as the villain, right? Like you have to
Yeah.
build things.
Exactly.
You have to make things matter internally.
Yeah.
You can't just jump to the biggest thing every time, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree, but I also agree that Galactus is like a really cool
Right,
villain.
but we don't even have Fantastic Four yet. We haven't brought, none of this stuff exists within the MCU yet. So I understand establishing and again, these things with like Kang and stuff have probably been in the work for years, They're not
Yeah.
just gonna abandon it after they bought Fox and be like, all right, hey, we got Galactus now, guys. We got
Yeah.
Kazar now, guys. Like,
I don't know who Kazar is, but he sounds cool.
yeah, but
Yeah.
um,
And I agree. Like, they're working with what they had, and eventually this is something I floated before too. Maybe some other people might disagree with me, but I don't know. Like, just being able to eventually at some point kind of just reset the MCU, because like eventually at some point they'll get so into the comic book weeds where it'll be really hard for regular fans like me who don't know anything about comic books at all to just keep up like on the day to day. Unfortunately, you know.
yeah. So the question is, do we do a tier list now,
I
or
mean, at some point, this is the end of phase 4, so maybe we should do one at the end of each phase. So, maybe that'll be next week or something.
yeah, whenever.
Whatever, for sure. So you hear that, guys? We got a tier list.
Yeah,
Everyone's favorite content is just more content, so it's coming.
yeah. I feel like tier lists are more fair than just like straight ranking because it's
Yeah,
like,
because they give you your general impression. And there's some movies that have good things, but are like, in general, also they flop in a lot of ways, which is
right.
important to acknowledge
And it's
all
important
the
to have a
time.
standard, right? Like something
Yeah,
that's like the standard for what a Marvel movie should be, which I've always used the first Iron Man as, right?
yeah,
Like Iron Man 1, it should be like a solid B, and then everything else kind of forms around that.
yeah.
Or maybe it's a C. I don't know. What do you think?
Iron Man 1,
Yeah.
I'd say it's definitely a solid B. It's but it is like a movie that has a lot of nostalgia looking back because where this all got started.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched like all through the entire MCU? Have you done that lately? Is that something you think about you may be able to attempt one day?
I mean, I did a run of it with my wife to catch her up.
Mm,
And that was supposed to be catching up for Endgame. I believe, or maybe I don't remember exactly. It was either Endgame or something else, but she watched a bunch with me, and then
mm.
it took like 7 months to get her to continue after like she watched like 4 or 5 movies, and I was like, there's stuff that happened in between there, like we went to Europe and stuff, but
Yeah,
and
that's big.
when we went to Europe, like we were in Paris for way too many days at the end. And
Mm,
so we were just like chilling in our Airbnb and like just started watching Harry Potter. And
mm,
then, that continued when we got back. We watched all the Harry Potter, and then we watched all the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. And then, she still hadn't watched all of Star Wars yet. So there's just so much we had to get through. You know what I'm saying?
rectify. Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah. But here we are.
Here
All these
we
years
are
later.
here we are indeed. All these years later, still alive. I'm glad Marvel movies are trucking along. I do feel like that even because Wakanda Forever was still pretty good, I still feel like there's like a lack of direction after Endgame. That's the vibe that I get. Is that they're still trying to stumble on to find a because I feel like that they just don't have the same
I feel like
presence.
I feel
Go
like
ahead.
you're right in some ways, but I also feel like this was always their plan, right? Like they felt like after Endgame, they couldn't just go back to making the same movies. They couldn't just go back to doing everything they were doing before. And then obviously with the pandemic hitting and stuff, like
Mm,
there's, like it felt like I think fans felt like Endgame happened, and then Spider-Man Far From Home was your bridge of grieving and then moving on,
yeah.
and then they expected everything to move on from there. But then the pandemic happened, a lot of things had to be redone and like whatever, and movies got pushed back. And then the next thing I believe after that, as far as a movie we got, was Black Widow. Uh,
Which
and
unfortunately, like even for me, like I watched it, I tried to give it a good fair watch, and I just was not entertained.
right.
I don't know what it was about that movie that really just made me not like it. But I just didn't have very good time with that movie. I thought it was quite boring, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like some things they kept, they stuck to their plan. They're like, all right, these things are all going to deal kind of with the fallout here, and Phase 4 is going to be that bridge of, major event, fallout, pick up new, the start of the next big thing, right?
Yeah.
And part of that I feel like was pre-planned, and then other parts of it, obviously Black Panther had to be reworked, and there's probably other parts of the phase and other things they did where they thought, well, our it doesn't matter what our plan was years ago, right? What we did in 2018, 2019 isn't going to work anymore. Not just because of what we've established, and maybe this is the problem. Maybe they didn't do this. Maybe they were just like, hey, let's just move ahead. Our plans have always worked, right? And that's a problem. I mean, anybody who works in business now, it doesn't matter how great your 2018 plans were and how much money you made in 2019 or whatever, or 2019 plans were. You can't do that anymore. Everything changed. We lived 30 years in the span of 2 years as far as the progress of things. Like, everything has changed. The way we think has changed. The way we interact with things has changed. The way we expect things has changed. And if businesses aren't adjusting to that, they're going to be left behind. They're going to go out of business. And if Marvel didn't change their plans because their old plans have always worked, that's a problem. And maybe that's evident in some of their movies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially with streaming, right? Like, they got on the boat of streaming. They released some movies straight to Disney Plus. They are doing the TV shows on Disney Plus, but they're also trying to, get the best of all worlds, which is smart. They should. But maybe they're missing something, right? Maybe they're missing the fact that in our world today, we can get anything we want, anywhere we want, at any time we want.
Yeah.
And that's what consumers expect. And what we've been getting from the MCU, the standards they set through Endgame were very high. And then coming out of that into Black Widow, Eternals, Doctor Strange, Thor, there's disappointment. Yes, Shang-Chi was amazing. Black Panther 2 was great. Far From Home was one of the best movies that Marvel's ever done, in my opinion. And so again, you can't just say, well, that's 3 out of 7 movies. That's almost 50%. We did fine. Like, no, because you have to understand that's over the course of what, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That people don't want that. People would rather you make 2 movies a year and have them both be bangers than make 4 movies a year and have 1 or 2 of them be good.
Yeah.
So, and again, maybe Marvel is stretching itself a bit thin, because not only did we have those, we had Moon Knight, we had Miss Marvel, we had She-Hulk, we had Werewolf by Night, we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki.
Yeah, and all of them which were spanning, like, between Loki and, like, Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night of being really, really good. That's the thing. Like, those shows weren't bad, too. That's another thing that's important to point out. And then, like, Moon Knight had Oscar Isaac, and Oscar Isaac is, like, the S-tier actor right now. He just is. Yep. So, it is, and that, again, that was in a Disney Plus show. That's important to point out. Yeah. And it was good. That's another thing that's important to point out. Like, Moon Knight was really good. I really genuinely enjoyed watching it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of content out there, as there should be, but I look forward to Ant-Man. But overall, yeah, Wakanda Forever was a good movie. It worked. If you think about it a lot on the story elements, the overarching whatever, there are issues. But if you watch this movie and you're invested in the moment-to-moment stuff is top tier. Yeah. And yes, there are pacing issues. Yes, there are things that might make you a little less interested. And really, for me, it's the Madam Hydra, like, Everett Ross stuff. Yeah. But hey, it's still great to see Bilbo Baggins hanging around. So, yeah.
No more Gollum, sadly. Oh well.
Yeah. He's no spoilers, but he's in Andor. So he's a little busy.
He's a little busy. Yeah. He's another S-tier actor. Andy
Serkis is really good, killing it. Like, the thing is, like, now, I'm glad people are actually realizing how good Andy Serkis is as an actor instead of just his motion capture. Now that he's been doing more, like, himself. Like, he was great as Claw, right, already. Like, Ulysses Claw. He was great. But now seeing him in Andor and, I'm sure he'll do other things that aren't motion capture. I mean, obviously his motion capture work is kind of unmatched, right? Like Gollum, Caesar from Planet of the Apes, Snoke and Star Wars. Like, he's done incredible things, and Andy Serkis deserves all the credit. He does have one blemish on his resume, and that is directing Venom 2. So, but maybe he's not made for directing. You know what I'm saying? Are you there? Did you leave me? I'm assuming maybe your headphone died or something, because I don't hear you, and I don't see your thing lighting up green. So, maybe you're just not there anymore. Maybe you've abandoned me. Which is, I'm used to. People abandon me. It happens.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Hello. Hi.
There we go.
Welcome back.
Good. That's better. Thank you. No, I didn't abandon you. Not this time, anyway.
Not like my dad.
You're welcome. Yeah. I don't know. Give me a few more drinks and we'll see what happens. And we'll see how long it takes me to go down to the store to buy cigarettes.
He smoked a pipe, though.
Yeah, well, it's just an excuse to leave the house and never come back.
Not wrong.
Nope.
But yeah.
Anyway, it was great. Is there anything else to talk about? I think we covered it all.
Yeah,
we just really like Black Panther and.
Yeah, we got it all. We covered all the bases. I enjoyed this movie going experience, and I will, probably see the movie again. I do need to rewatch the first one. I haven't rewatched it in a while, so.
Yeah, I did that after I got home, actually. I had a little bit of time left over, so I just ended up rewatching the whole first one.
Yeah.
What's next on the list? What's next? Ant-Man and the Wasp, right?
Yep. And Quantum Mania is the next one, so.
And I like that movie poster a lot. It looks really good.
Yeah.
Like, really, really good. So.
It'll be exciting, and hopefully, it'll answer some questions people have about what Phase 4 was all about, too, if we didn't already do that, but. Yeah. Anyway,
sure.
Thanks, everyone who's watched, listened, just tuned in. Much love. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're listening on the podcast. You can leave a review. It really helps. We want more people to discover us and listen. And if you think, if you know people who like nerd stuff like this, tell them about us. We'll say, hey, if you like these MCU things or nerd things or Star Wars things.
Thoughtful, mature commentary where we talk about the actual management processes that happen behind the scenes and go on every day in directing. Very deep commentary you won't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
probably.
Totally. We are so aware. So please do those things. If you want to watch live, you can follow on Twitch, twitch.tv/thenerdledger. All love. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Goodbye.